Good to have you along here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas and BJ Bennett here on this Friday. Bowl season is upon us. We've already got one down and like 40 plus more to go here as we head through. So the Bahamas Bowl is down. Cure Bowl tonight. BJ Bennett, as you mentioned, Coastal Carolina trying to get their first ever bowl win if they can get it done tonight. But you also have a whole host tomorrow: the Boca Raton Bowl, Celebration Bowl, New Mexico Bowl, Independence Bowl, the Liberty Bowl, the Lending Tree Bowl, the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, and the New Orleans Bowl, all tomorrow. So a full Saturday of bowl games to kind of get that first weekend going.
I'm excited. I'm ready. And I think you have games with compelling storylines all over the place. You think about the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta, an opportunity for Jackson State to make another statement. When you think about what they did earlier in the week with Deion Sanders and Travis Hunter on National Signing Day, and they'll take on South Carolina State in Atlanta. That should be a great game. And then I am excited to kind of kick off the weekend, if you will. I know we just had a game, but with the bowl game tonight in Orlando, I think Coastal Carolina is a program that is, even though they took a step back, if you will, from where they were last year, eager to have that milestone win, that first ever bowl game. You go back and think about Georgia Southern's win in Mobile over Bowling Green. That was very emotional, just a very meaningful win. And I think there's an opportunity for Coastal Carolina to do that, just following the Sun Belt. Appalachian State against Western Kentucky. Appalachian State, one of those programs, they've been right there. I mean, since moving up from the FCS ranks, they have been one of the more consistent teams in any conference at any level, whether you're talking about P5, G5. So these games do give a platform, a state. You think about Toledo and Middle Tennessee State. We watched that game, learning about some new players, some new coaches. So I'm excited. And Kevin, to go back to our conversation we have every year about there being too many bowl games, in theory, okay, but I do think there's value. I do think it's good football. I do think it's a good spotlight for the programs. And at the end of the day, it's football. We're all going to watch it. Now, I get, you can make fun of the sponsors and kind of the fact that there aren't very many tradition-rich bowl games. I mean, outside of the big bowl games, yeah. I get that there's a lot of change.
That's been lost. I mean, you got to say.
Okay. I'll give you that, but I don't think the value of the spotlight or the opportunity for the players or coaches, that hasn't been lost. But I do agree that, you've seen bowl games come and go, disappear. I know you talked about a couple of days ago. Yeah. We just made up a bowl game.
They literally did, just made one up to get teams in there. And you have 80 plus teams in a bowl game. I've long said, look, what are bowl games about for the bottom level teams? You get more practices and guys get a trip, right? And so normally in years gone by, I would say, you know what, that's probably a cool deal. You get a trip out of it. You get to go someplace new. You get a gift bag with a lot of cool stuff. They give you some clothes. They give you some stuff like that. Now with NIL out there and all that, I am more in favor of just give everybody 18 extra practices that you can do during bowl season, even if you stink and don't go to a bowl game.
Even if you go 2 and 10.
Just give them practices, just like, spring practice, but just give them practices. So you can go out there and get some work in. You don't have to use them, but I think you can make it available and say, hey, you have the opportunity to get practices in. I would say if you're not in a bowl game, it needs to happen between, obviously the time the season's over up until maybe say like the 21st or 20-something of December. So it's not like, hey, we're keeping kids for Christmas for no reason. But I do think you can allow teams to have practices because, again, BJ, we were laughing a couple of times today in the Bahamas Bowl. Couple of players for Akron, less than enthused to have the ball in their hand. I'll say that. We saw a guy catch a pass, get hit, get stood up, and everybody just kind of stood there, and the receiver kind of walked out of bounds. And I'm going, is that what you as a fan want to watch? And I'm not saying, hey, these kids are making business decisions. I understand that. But if you don't want to try or play, then don't play, right? I mean, if you're going to go out there and play a game, then let's try to do it. So I think that's where you get with some of it. And again, I kind of look at bowl games as you should be rewarding programs for excellence. And 6-6, 7-5, that's not excellent.
Well, you say that though. I mean, they're Florida State, Nebraska, Texas.
Is anybody on this show arguing that they were achieving excellence this season?
But I'm just saying it's not as easy always. Oh man, everybody gets to 6 wins. I mean,
no. And again, I just don't believe that they should go. Again, I think you could cut the number of bowl games in half, and you're talking about basically the top 40. I think that would be acceptable.
I do agree with you. I think
there's
most
nothing
people,
special about. And again, we've said this, BJ. The BCS devalued things to a certain way. The playoffs, I think, has devalued pretty much everything but the New Year's Six. So that a lot of times, I think when you hear people talk about it, fan bases talk about it, and that gets projected onto the kids. How excited really? I mean, it's a great trip to Bahamas, but let's say you're the Coastal Carolina. I mean, okay, we're playing one more game. I get it. To me, it takes away some of the. This is what we are striving for now. If there's only 20, man, you really had to earn it to get your way.
But here's what I'm getting at. I will agree with you that every bowl game, given that 82, 84 teams get in.
Because in the age of NIL, does it really matter? Like, but they get a gift bag.
Not.
I mean, you have guys getting $100,000. I mean,
to go back to your phraseology, it is not a reward for an excellent season in every case, right? I would agree with that.
Yes.
But what I think it is, it's a showcase of college football. And that's what I'm getting at.
We had 4 months to showcase some of these guys, and they didn't do it.
And to be fair, I'm not sure that all these teams were always on ESPN or ESPN2 or on national radio. So I think it's a good thing. There are a lot of great players, great coaches, great stories, great programs in college football. And I think this is a showcase and kind of celebration of that, more so with, especially with the 6-6 and 7-5 teams, than it is, I had an amazing season.
I just find it kind of ironic that the same crowd that's like, college football is great because every game matters. And then we get to the end and like anybody can get in a bowl game if you meet minimal criteria. And I say minimal because literally one was made up out of thin air. Like a week before the game, right? A week before the game started, they just made one up.
But if you're going 6-6, okay, let's say Florida State or Nebraska or Texas or Georgia Tech.
If you're 6-6 and you're a head coach, you should not be hanging hey, at least you went to a bowl game on your resume.
No one's saying that. What I think we are saying is if you're Florida State, Texas, Nebraska, I think it's a little bit different maybe for some of the G5 schools. But if you're one of those programs and you go 6-6, you understand this was not a signature season and we're not going to the Orange Bowl. Like, I think there's no misnomer out there that everybody thinks a bowl game is because you had this great historic season that goes down in the
be that way?
I don't think so.
Like now you're almost required to go. Why? Because the conference is going to get a check. That's I think it's right?
an extra. No, I don't think it's about that. I think it's an extra.
When's the last team to turn one down?
Don't know off the top of my head. But I think it's an extra opportunity for the student athletes. I mean, Ben's talked about that too. Granted, you did not have a season they're going to write about in the media guide necessarily, but you were okay. And you have a chance to take 85 student athletes, walk-ons even maybe to a certain extent, to have an extra game and kind of celebrate the magic that is college football. Now, yes, if you were to have, I think you reach a point where like if 2 and 10 teams are playing each other, where you look at it and go, this might be a hard sell.
I mean, we have had 5 and 7 teams.
I get it, and I was not necessarily a fan of that.
Had Middle Tennessee lost, they would be 6 and 7.
That happens. I mean, teams make it 500, but I also don't think this is like totally unheard of in terms of parallels to other sports. I've heard a lot of anti-college football folks say, well, man, these teams are playing after an average season. Every year, teams make the playoffs in all the major sports.
Right. And was anybody championing the NBA when below 500 teams were making it in the playoffs?
But we're talking about the reality of what is, because everybody goes, these college football games. Well, teams haven't teams won the World Series that have barely been 500 in baseball?
A little over 500. That's a larger sample size.
In the regular season, NBA teams, especially in the East over the last decade, have made the NBA playoffs, where not only are you in the postseason, you're directly competing for a championship with a below 500 record. We have seen teams regularly in the National Football League go 9-7 and win the Super Bowl. So you were one game above 500, and you're not having an extra game or a bonus game. You're getting into essentially the playoff, the college football playoff, and you have a chance to win a championship. I mean, teams all the time in the NCAA tournament are 500, a game or two under 500. They win their conference. They get in. So
there's way less teams in those professional sports. So I think like a better equivalent would be like, hey, Detroit, you get to go play an extra game just because.
Well, I think you can look at it for what it is. Teams that are about 500 make college football bowl games. Teams that are about 500 regularly make the NFL, NBA, and to a certain extent, Major League Baseball playoffs, and they're competing for championships. That's what I'm getting at about it's understood. Middle Tennessee and Toledo today knew they were not playing for a national championship,
Obviously, yes.
right? Like even next week, when you start to get into some of the Power 5 teams, they know they're not competing for national championships. So, or Super Bowl titles or World Series. So I think there's value in celebrating what is amateurism in that you're not getting a salary to play. You might have some NIL benefits, but you've competed for a whole season. You were at least 500. You get a bonus game. There's no kind of wink that you're competing for a championship.
No, I'm not saying that there is. I'm just saying like we treat bowl season like, oh man, it's special time. And again, I think most people will sit back and watch the games, and that's, as I said, we are football crack addicts. Like that is
celebrating
as a society we can't get enough. But I would say that most people probably don't gear up on bowl season until you really get closer to New Year's Eve. And you start seeing some of those.
But dude, even then,
I'm saying
who was in the Outback Bowl last year?
I understand that, and again, I think that's pseudo a problem. When so many teams make bowl games, you're like, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. It should be a big deal.
But I'm saying
it should be a big deal
even with
for
the
you to
games.
Make the
if you want to cut it down from 40 to 20, and whatever 42,
and that's still the top 40, which is a heck of a lot of.
And what I'm saying is, if you do that, you still will not remember every single game except the playoff.
True.
So, like, who was in the Outback Bowl last year? Who was in the Gator Bowl last year?
Michigan State.
Yeah. Auburn and Wisconsin. They play every year. But what I'm saying is, it's not supposed to be, I don't think, this memorable hang a banner for every. I'm talking about the Power 5 teams. You had an iconic, legendary season.
They're putting banners up if they win bowl games.
Well, maybe. But what I'm saying is, you understand what it is. You understand what it is. Like South Carolina went 6-6. That's not viewed as this is one of the great seasons in Gamecock history.
They overachieved. I get it.
Right. It's viewed as
still shouldn't go to a bowl game.
But it's viewed as we're a young program in terms of starting over, hitting the reset button with Coach Beamer. We maybe exceeded expectations from the outside looking in. It's a chance at an extra game. They're not like in the pros competing for a championship. It's even understood like internally that you're not in one of the high profile games. Like I know it's not exactly like this, but normally if you don't play on, or it used to be at least, if you don't play on January 1st, you're kind of not in the showcase bowl games. So even with when you play, it's built in and understood that you are not one of college football's best teams.
And I don't think it's so much that way. Like I think the closer you get to New Year's Eve, the
playoffs are in December. But what I'm saying is, it's not like there's this ruse out there that you made a bowl game. No, you understand that this is maybe even a modest achievement in some respects, but it's celebrating student athletes, giving them an extra chance to play a game, putting teams and players on TV, trips.
Just let them all play in Bahamas.
I mean, I agree.
Just have one stadium, and they just play all back to back. Kind of like the state championships we just did. Everybody played at Georgia State. If you are not in one of the upper crust bowls, you just all go to the Bahamas. And you all play in the same stadium, and we'll just have 5 games a day.
I'm saying
back to back.
Baseball teams will be 3 games over 500.
I get because that's such a small percentage of the league that make it to the postseason in baseball. Nobody's championing the fact that like the Hawks got in one year under 500.
But is anybody going crazy if a 9-7 team gets in and wins the Super Bowl? No, you're going, hey man, and that's competing for a championship.
I understand that. I certainly understand, but people were raising eyebrows. Wasn't somebody like 8-8 a couple years ago getting
the team that beat the undefeated Patriots? Those Giants were 9-7 in the regular season. They probably lost to like the Falcons or the Jaguars. I mean,
but bowl season is upon us. We are at least excited about that, I promise. And we will talk more bowls coming up in just a little bit. Also, we'll get BJ's top 10 bowl games involving either an ACC or SEC team, and some of the very intriguing bowl games that are out there as well. But when we come back, the FCS playoffs are underway tonight. You have North Dakota State and James Madison. James Madison going into the Sun Belt. Also, Montana State, South Dakota State on Saturday. And then they have a long layoff until their national championship game coming up in January. Kevin Marshall, FCS Nation Radio, will join us when we return here. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along 3 and Out on this Friday afternoon. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Plenty to get to here on the show, including bowl season underway and the FCS playoffs down to the semifinals. You have one tonight with North Dakota State and James Madison, one tomorrow with Montana State and South Dakota State. James Madison getting ready to move to the Sun Belt with Georgia Southern and company there in just a little bit. So we'll talk to him, to our next guest, about all of that, who is currently in what BJ said, 7 degrees. 17?
I think it's 17 or 18. Yeah.
Okay. Kevin Marshall, FCS Nation Radio, joins us here. Kevin, it's we got our t-shirts on and our shorts, and it's in the 70s here. How you doing?
Well, look, I'm a low country boy at heart, so I do miss that. But, I'm staring in a little town about 10 miles from Butte, Montana called Ramsey, and there's snow on the ground, and there's a football game tonight, and there's one tomorrow. And look, the FCS playoffs, I like FBS football, but there's something special about having a field of 24, and the national champion is the last team that wins a football game.
Absolutely. So you get down to these final 4 teams. James Madison, of course, Kevin, going to be leaving at some point, going to the Sun Belt. So could be one of their last runs here through the playoffs. How prepared, obviously, as a program are they to make that transition that we've seen Georgia Southern, Appalachian State, and others make?
Look, JMU, they probably could have gotten in the Sun Belt when App and Georgia Southern did. But I think that with Appy and with GSU, it was we're going to get to FBS even if the football isn't as good as to what we're accustomed to seeing. I mean, people seem to forget that the last couple of years in the SoCon, Georgia Southern and Appy were not good. Finished 5th and 6th place, and then they immediately go to the Sun Belt, and they're the 2 best teams in that league. The Sun Belt's come a long way since then, and James Madison really sort of bided their time and waited till the time was right for them. And the Sun Belt has improved exponentially the last 7, 8, 9 years, and it's a really good Group of 5 league now, and James Madison will fit in quite nicely there.
And Kevin, the games this weekend, but before we get to those, I wanted to ask you about National Signing Day. Deion Sanders, Jackson State, Travis Hunter, the number 1 or number 2 player in the country out of the state of Georgia, obviously signs with Jackson State. Just a cool thing for HBCUs, for Deion Sanders. What was your reaction to that? Didn't seem like there was, in the days leading up to the early signing period, I should say, that there was speculation that was going to happen. And could we see more of that now moving forward?
Look, Hugh Jackson is now the head coach at Grambling. Deion Sanders is at Jackson State. I mean, you got big name coaches that have coached in the National Football League or played in the National Football League who are going there to the SWAC, and probably some are going to come to the MEAC as well. And I think that's really great for that group of schools. Now, Florida A&M has Willie Simmons as their head coach. Clemson fans and people that follow the Citadel know that Willie was a quarterback at Clemson and then for the Citadel. So, I mean, you've got names there. And look, if you're Travis Hunter and you're a defensive back, why wouldn't you go to Jackson State? I mean, who better to learn from than probably the best cornerback of all time?
Absolutely. And the Celebration Bowl coming up this weekend. Of course, the MEAC and the SWAC champions play there. Kevin, kind of interesting that the champions play in the Celebration Bowl, but I guess maybe just as a weird turn of events, what FAMU got in the FCS playoffs as an at-large, but the champions play in the Celebration Bowl instead of the FCS playoffs.
Look, I don't begrudge anybody for making a paycheck. I mean, most FCS programs do that every year when they step up and play an FBS team. And look, the Celebration Bowl, obviously, those 2 leagues feel like is a better financial opportunity and exposure opportunity for them. And I believe that they're right. Look, the MEAC champion for, they were in the FCS playoffs. I mean, how many times did we watch South Carolina State go to Statesboro or to Boone in the first round and get beat 58-3? So there wasn't a whole lot coming out of that for them. And then you have the Celebration Bowl, and, you put that on national television, great atmosphere, good football, good bands, a sold-out Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I don't believe the Falcons have sold out Mercedes-Benz Stadium this year. So that's an impressive feat. Looking forward to a great game there.
I was going to say, Kevin, Jackson State has lost only to Louisiana Monroe in a close game. What do you think we see on Saturday? Is this going to be another big win for Deion Sanders and Jackson State?
We'll see. I mean, look, for those of us that know, and I know that y'all are in that group. There's not a more respected college football coach in the state of South Carolina than Buddy Pugh. Not Dabo Swinney, not Beamer or whoever, if you follow the line as they come and they go in Columbia coaching the Gamecocks. Nobody is more respected than Buddy Pugh. He'll have a little something ready for Coach Prime and the Tigers. He'll do some things on the defensive side you probably haven't seen him do all year. And the MEAC Defensive Player of the Year is a cornerback, strangely enough, and he is going to take away one side of the field from Shedeur Sanders. And I know that his dad, he might not like it during the game, but secretly afterwards, he'll really enjoy that, considering he used to take away a whole side of the field too. I expect this to be a really good game. And South Carolina State, look, that Bulldog team always plays tough defense. They're always in the game. I expect a 4-quarter game that goes down to the wire.
Kevin Marshall, FCS Nation Radio, joining us. You mentioned the FCS semifinals tonight. Kevin, I wonder if you could just talk about kind of the balance of power at the FCS level and how it seems to have shifted, obviously, through college football movement, but you go back and the Georgia Southerns, Appalachian States, Marshalls at times dominating the college football landscape at the FCS level. And then here recently, it seems to be concentrated in the Dakotas and Montana. You got North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State. I know the Grizzlies of Montana have been fixtures deep in the FCS playoffs. Kind of explain the balance of power and how it's kind of shifted there to the Dakota region. It
has. And look, when you have, just like the state of South Carolina, for example, before Coastal Carolina played football, that's another whole team of guys who would have been spread out between the Citadel, South Carolina State, Furman, CSU, Wofford. So the pool has definitely been, limited there. But when you talk about it that way, look, Montana State, that's a hell of a rivalry. It should be on everyone's bucket list, whether it's in Bozeman or Missoula. And with Bobby Houck coming back to Montana, things change in a hurry. And I think the Grizz are probably a little ahead of schedule. Truth be told, Montana fans don't like to hear that, and Bobby Houck would never admit it. But I think they're a little bit ahead of even where he thought they would be, especially after the COVID year. North Dakota State, there isn't a team in Division I football that would like to line up and play them. And look, they can't get an FBS game because they've embarrassed people, and nobody wants to play them. And the University of North Dakota is on the come up as well. But South Dakota State, and you watch that ball game tomorrow, the matchup between the South Dakota State offensive line, they call them the 605 Hogs, and the defensive line for Montana State, that's going to be as good of two lines meeting as you're going to see at any level of college football. There's NFL talent on both of those teams.
North Dakota State, you talked about their success. Are they the favorite? I know fans who casually follow the FCS are familiar with their championship run. Are they the team to beat here in the Final Four?
They're not as good this year as they have been, which is like, you're kind of being picky about it, but they're not. They're not as dynamic on offense. They don't have a Carson Wentz. Trey Lance could still be their quarterback, but instead he's in San Francisco backing up Jimmy Garoppolo, another FCS guy who won the Walter Payton Award at Eastern Illinois. So Cam Miller is a great story, y'all. As easy as it is now for young men who don't get their way or things don't go their way to hit the transfer portal. Well, they brought in two Power 5 guys. One of them started some games for South Carolina this year after he transferred because Cam Miller beat him out. And then they brought in a transfer from Virginia Tech, who is now just kind of running gadget plays because Cam Miller beat him out. They brought in two Power 5 transfers. And did he leave? No. He put his head down. He worked. He fought. He won the job. And one guy transferred and one guy's riding the bench. You have to appreciate that kind of stick-to-itness and intestinal fortitude in a young man. It's hard to root against him. But he is not the passer Trey Lance is, not the passer Carson Wentz is. They need to stretch the ball down the field, especially against James Madison, because James Madison's quarterback, Cole Johnson's very talented. Latrell Palmer, their running back, is as good as anybody's in the country. But the Bison have an advantage, I think, on the offensive and defensive lines. It's that group is just so good. If JMU can hold serve there and be able to do what they do on offense, this should be a whale of a game.
All right, Kevin, who do you think's moving on to play in the championship? Again, this is kind of a cool setup. You play the playoffs. you get to the semifinals, and then once the championship is set, you get a big layoff to January 8th before the championship game.
I think I always say this, that you never pick against the Bison in the Fargo Dome because there's no money in it. And I think you're going to have NDSU, and I think it's a pick 'em tomorrow in Bozeman. We're on our way to that right now, and it's a pick 'em there. Montana State is at home. Tommy Millard, it's been a great story for them at quarterback. He's a Butte, Montana kid, and if there's one Montana, I should never pick against a Butte, Montana kid. So give me last two and the Montana State Bobcats to play for it all down there on 8 January in Frisco, Texas.
Kevin Marshall, FCS Nation Radio, joining us here on 3 and Out. Kevin, appreciate the time. Enjoy the football. Thanks so much.
Thanks, y'all. Eat some boiled peanuts and some shrimp and grits for me, would you?
I will certainly do that. Kevin Marshall joining us here on 3. That sounds good. Can we just call the show right now and be done? I think he was getting into some of that Butte, Montana cell service there towards the end of that call. But, yeah, I mean, interesting football there at the FCS level, the Fargo Dome. You've heard people say it's just kind of there, and it looks like a barn, and you get inside and go play.
It's loud, though.
Yes, it certainly does. But, BJ, as you know, very good football at the top of that FCS. And we kind of mentioned it there. James Madison obviously is going to be moving up to play in the Sun Belt. But those other 3, North Dakota, South Dakota State, Montana State, all kind of centralized in that Big Sky area. And that's where once the absence of the App States and Georgia Southerns and teams like that moved out, that Big Sky region has really dominated FCS level football.
And FCS football is incredible. And you think about the FCS playoffs, you think about the Celebration Bowl. I mean, this is must-see TV. And I do think that North Dakota State, you heard Kevin say there at home, might be the team to beat. But then you go to Frisco, Texas, of course, for the final. But looking forward to that game tonight. Tomorrow, the Celebration Bowl also. And Kevin was talking about Coach Buddy Pugh's done an incredible job at South Carolina State. They've been one of the top programs in the country for quite some time, and looking forward to that game and maybe seeing what's next for Jackson State and Deion Sanders. We were talking about it. One loss. You lost to Louisiana Monroe, who's in the Sun Belt, and I think you lost that game by 3 or 4 points. So looking forward to some great football at the FCS level tonight, tomorrow. Then you talk about the bowl games, a lot of football to watch, and really excited for the next couple of days.
We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We're streaming live at ESPNCoastal.com. Bowl season is upon us. Already one in the books. A full slate of bowl games tomorrow. We got one more today. The Cure Bowl, Coastal Carolina and Northern Illinois playing tonight. The Chanticleers looking for their first bowl win in program history. But BJ, a lot of talk about obviously playoffs and expanded playoffs that could potentially be coming on the horizon out there. Would bowl season be better off with an expanded playoff? Because I mean, we talked in the first segment about how many bowl games you have where, yes, they're bowl games, yes, they're rewards, but oftentimes, we had a joke today, players at times seem disinterested in going. Fan bases sometimes seem disinterested in going. How do you improve bowl season from that standpoint? Would an expanded playoff help with that?
I think the answer is probably yes, because you think about from a bowl season standpoint, if you were to expand it to 12, okay, you have 24 fan bases that are directly engaged and ready to go and excited and traveling and, have a chance to compete for a national championship most prominently. And right now, that's not the case. And you have 4. And I think if you expand the playoff, the interest expands. But we were talking about this. I think the consequence of that would be, I know you've said time and time again, and to be fair, you have for a number of years, that a lot of the bowl games, not a lot of interest in terms of ticket sales from fan bases, not a lot of interest just in terms of necessarily people watching, or I hate to say caring. I mean, I don't know if that's fair, but you have, like you said, if you're 6-6 and maybe you're, a Florida, I don't know how much the interest level is compared to if you're 10-2 and in the Sugar Bowl, not even in the playoff. But I think if you expand the playoff, you further marginalize those bowl games, right? I mean,
how do you bring it back?
Well,
you don't.
Yeah, and if
you're 6-6 and 7-5, I think even in some cases, like, hey, we're 8-4 playing 7-5. I just think you're like, as far as the matchups concerned.
Let me ask you this, though, and I'm in favor of an expanded playoff, not necessarily because it would be better football, but because you have to have a postseason tournament that is representative of the body it serves. But what I'm asking is, would the playoff lose a little luster if all of a sudden they're now and I don't know why I was like not 24 fan base, 12 fan base. Yeah. I was thinking about 2 games. But if all of a sudden maybe you have a, I don't know, 9-3 Pitt, 10-2 Wake Forest, or is that? I think if you're in the playoff,
if you're in the playoff, you're excited about it. I personally, again, I don't mind the expanded playoff model. I know some people don't like it, but look, I think more teams that have an opportunity to be in it and play in it is what? More players willing to play in bowl season.
Sure.
We'll get to this a little bit later, but I think you have less opting out, because what player who's a true competitor wants to opt out of a playoff scenario where if I go and win on the field, I could win a national championship and be a legend at a school. Now, how do you improve the rest of it? Honestly, if it's me, BJ, I do away with bowl tie-ins. And I know conferences hate that because they want guaranteed money grabs. And I appreciate that. I think what you would do is say, if that's the case, we'll give you guaranteed bowl slots, right? Okay, so you're the SEC, you get 10 guaranteed bowl slots. It doesn't mean you go there, because fans get burnt out on that too. Because what we joke on the show, Michigan State and Penn State and Wisconsin and Auburn and Georgia go to the Outback Bowl if they're not in the play. It's like
Auburn and Wisconsin play every year.
It's like one of those jokes. So I would go to guaranteed bowl slots. It is about a money grab at the end of the day. So guaranteed bowl slots, not guaranteed bowls.
This is what I'm asking.
Because again, I think you have the playoffs and then you rank the bowl games, right? And give them certain criteria. You rank the bowl games and say, all right, after the playoffs, you have first pick. Take any of these 2 bowl eligible teams you want. Because the game doesn't matter, right? I mean, the game does not matter.
So at the end of the day, whether you're 9-3 and you don't make the playoffs or you're 6-6, it doesn't matter.
But hear me out, because people say, the game doesn't matter. Okay, I'm the Gator Bowl. There's 1 or 2 ways I can look at it. I could just invite Florida and somebody else and put together a pretty good game, regardless of record, or I could get the 2 best teams to come to Jacksonville and play in my bowl game that I could possibly get. Maybe it's a different matchup. Maybe it's 2 teams that don't play each other a lot because of bowl tie-ins. Give me I think if I'm the Gator Bowl, I'd say I can have anybody. I'm taking the 2 best teams I can get to come here and play.
But let me ask you this.
And if you're like the Bahamas Bowl, you say, how are we always going to be near the bottom? okay, meet some attendance requirements, meet some situations that maybe you can move up in that hierarchy and pick better teams. But to me, have the playoffs and open seed the bowl games. We're going to rank them. Gator Bowl, you're number 2 of the bowl games that are left. This bowl's going to get a pick, and then you get to pick your 2 teams, and we go down
But
the list.
if you expand the playoff, and now you have 12 teams, not 24, 12. Think about the FCS.
Right.
You have 12 teams, and you
24 fan bases.
and you are completely consumed by that entity. The playoff is bigger,
Sure.
more prominent, expanded to an extent it's never been. Can you still sell the other bowl games?
Sure.
I understand you're talking about reshaping how you do it.
What are you selling them as now?
Well, I think it's an easier pitch.
Is it?
If
what
everybody,
are you selling it as now? Just tell me, honest to God.
Okay.
If you're the GMAC Bowl, what are you selling that
does
as?
the GMAC Bowl still exist?
I don't know, but
What I'm getting at is
the New Orleans Bowl tonight. What are you selling the New Orleans Bowl as?
Well, I think the New Orleans Bowl is. Well, hold on. I think that is a different dynamic because you're talking about the G5, and it's never been the Sugar Bowl, right? Christian walks in and says,
okay, stick with the Gator Bowl then.
But this is what
are you selling the Gator Bowl at?
I think it's one of the more prominent bowl games
okay,
on the schedule.
No, it can still be one of the more prominent bowl games. You're not selling it as this is.
But what I'm getting at is right
now
now you can sell the Sugar Bowl as 2 top 10
the
teams.
Sugar Bowl also occasionally has the playoffs.
Right, but this year, hear me out. This year, when you're selling the Sugar Bowl, you can say these are 2 top 10 teams, Ole Miss and Baylor. These are 2 teams that are a play or 2 away from the national championship or the opportunity to play for a national championship. If you expand the playoff to 12, your best teams not in the playoff are going to have 3-4 losses. So is that appeal of the New Year's 6? Oh, Christian's coming in. Do you still have that?
I just want to say one thing, Kevin. You know why he's so spicy today? He's wearing a V-neck.
Maybe so. Is that the key to spiciness?
Yeah, that's why he's a little bit of chest hair poking out up there.
Well, yeah.
Spicy BJ today.
No, it's full
That's
Kevin
all you
Thomas.
had to add was
that's it.
That's it.
I don't even know what the argument was.
No, we were talking about if you expanded playoffs, do you further marginalize the other bowls? And I said, look, I'm getting rid of bowl tie-ins. I'm not saying bowl spots because it's a money grab. We all know that. I say, hey, you're the SEC, you still get 10 spots. You're the ACC, you're just not locked in. You're not locked in to go to the Outback Bowl.
They go to 12. They go to 12 teams.
And you open seed the remaining bowl games and you rank the bowls in the hierarchy.
What I'm saying is, would there still be...
So bowl game number 1 outside the playoff can pick the 2 teams they want that are not in the playoff.
I like that. I'm saying now, and I'm in favor...
But who are you to tell me that the Gasparilla Bowl is more important than the Sun Bowl?
Because it is.
Okay.
But no, look, I think there are certain...
Florida and UCF this year.
But I think there are certain markers you can ask of the bowls to do, like physical butts and seats, things of that nature that could be benchmarks where you want to move up.
I would agree with you getting rid of the bowl tie-ins. I do think it's lame that
because you end up in the same 3 or 4 kind of bowl
if a Pac-12 team makes it or even a Big Ten team makes it to the college football playoff, then a lackluster team gets to go to one of the most premier bowl games.
Let me frame the question back to the start of the segment, because I think all of us, I believe, are in favor of an expanded college football playoff. Are you not? Are you hesitant?
Hesitant.
Okay. The question was,
I am expansion curious.
Okay.
But I think bowl season outside the playoffs is already marginalized. I don't think you're going to marginalize it anymore.
Well, I think the worry is if you
let me ask the question
so
we know what we're talking about.
You marginalize the regular season.
That too. But the question was, would there be more energy around bowl season if you expand the playoff? And I think there would obviously, without question, be more energy around the playoff. But with the other bowl game, because at least now you can pitch Ole Miss and Baylor, you're not going to be able to pitch 2 leading teams.
So obviously it would be. I think you already marginalized it by expanding it. As soon as you went to 4, all the other bowl games became less than.
But that's just one more game than what it was.
It used to be the college football. You knew that only 1% of the schools would get to play in the national championship game, and everyone else, you kind of had to make everything bigger, or there would be nothing big except for 2 teams at the end of the year. So the Cotton Bowl always meant something, right? The Sugar Bowl always.
That's what I'm getting at.
They always meant something, right? And so all of these bowl games, I think it was propped up by the fact that only one group got to play in the national championship game.
So changed to 2, changed everything.
I think that completely changed everything. Completely took the energy off of the other bowl games. I don't want to sound like I'm Kevin here. I love bowl games. I think players should get to go. And I think it's awesome for the player experience.
I do too.
Whether or not you watch, it doesn't matter to me. It's cool that players get like PS5s and stuff, and they get to go and experience something. I think.
But in the age of NIL, does that even matter?
Yes,
because not everybody's getting NIL.
Absolutely,
not everybody.
I would be
50
very
grand just for playing offensive line at Texas.
PS5 is like $500, $600. I'd be very curious to see what percentage of college football players earned that much money in NILs this past season. I'd be very curious to see that. Still think it's cool. Even if you earn money, I make more than most college football players. I would still love a free PlayStation 5. So beyond that, I think you go with the college football playoff expansion. I think it clearly makes it bigger in terms of bowls. I think what you have to watch out for is does Georgia Auburn become less significant? Does LSU Alabama become less significant because they can lose
Hold that thought.
and still make it?
That's been proven. Alabama can lose and still make it anyway. But we'll hold that thought. We'll come back. We got to take a break. It's 3 and out. Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Boy, the wheels are turning.
You are so smart.
I am. Thank you. Again, it's finally somebody give me credit for this.
You just hit me in the face with an idea bomb.
Somebody else will steal it and take credit for it. It's fine, but I'm saying
That would be must see TV.
I'm not saying he's smart.
No, that would be must see TV. I have audio in there of you saying Kevin's right, so we can go and
I
skip
didn't
that.
say he was smart.
But
smart and right. I also said the sun was a star, whatever, moon was
no,
a star, whatever.
well, the sun
that's
is
fine.
a star.
Well, I said the other thing then. It's whatever.
Did you say the moon was a star?
Yes.
A long time ago, I did. Trying to win a stupid argument and just, you say stupid stuff sometimes.
Carry on.
But that being said, we're going to carry it over into the next hour because, again,
We're
people
gonna
are hung
tease
up.
it.
People are hung up on like the importance of bowl season, and I'm saying, look, we as college football community are trying to get over on all this. What must be important? It's got to matter. It's got like we already are at a point where a lot of stuff doesn't matter in college athletics. We're just trying to get to the end point, and so I think expanding
That is quite philosophical, my friend.
Kevin's taking us on a journey. It's like watching Interstellar.
I'm telling you, it's amazing what happens when I get a full night's rest, a clear head,
And a bowl of Wheaties.
and yes, exactly. Somebody just give me some lunch, and I'm good. I can move.
What are you
on
doing
and
on
move
the other days? Like every other day.
You don't even want to know what's happening. But anyway, we'll continue this on the flip side into the final hour. But I did want to continue talking about because it is. I think it's going to be an evolution of college football because I think again you can make as many bowl games you want, but I think you're like, well, what are you?
No, you're getting too in depth. I want to go back to you creating the greatest college football television show of all time, where we're not just drafting players. You're drafting teams.
Exactly.
Well, to be fair, I mean, you do have a television show that already kind of does that for the playoffs.
That's not really a draft, though.
Nobody likes it.
But
it's
the,
not
the
an open
people,
pick.
The people from Tax Slayer aren't picking teams, right? It's a college football
It's
selection
tied in.
committee.
It's already done.
Right. Now we have
they're not picking anything.
Now we
It's
have
tied in
companies and bowl games drafting teams. This is
it's amazing.
awesome.
We've got more to come. I'll expand on that when we come back.
Like if there's a Zaxby's Bowl, do they automatically have to get Georgia because JT Daniels is on Georgia?
That's right.
This is wow.
The Zalad player of the game. We'll come back. 3 and Out Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. Welcome back, 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, glad you were with us. Thanks for making us a part of your day here. Final hour of the show. We'll count you down towards the Cure Bowl. I know we've talked a lot about the importance of bowl games, or in some cases, lack thereof. But we will have the Cure Bowl coming up. Coastal Carolina trying to get their first ever bowl win in program history against a team that's had one of the greatest turnarounds in college football. Went from winless a season ago to 8 wins in conference champions. So big season there for Northern Illinois. That one coming up as soon as we are done here this evening on 3 and Out. So that being said, BJ, I know we talked a lot about the expansion of the playoffs and a situation of bringing importance to the bowl games that we do have. I think the only thing that's going to make it important is if you change it up. I think bowl season has gotten somewhat stale because, again, this is no disrespect at all, but tonight you have tomorrow night you have the New Orleans Bowl. How many times have the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana played in that New Orleans Bowl?
A lot.
A lot. So wouldn't it be nice for them as a fan base to go somewhere else, expose them to another region of the country,
Sure.
Potentially in bowl season? I think that is what gets people excited because a lot of times I think you see now, if you have a team that hasn't been to a bowl in a number of years, that's a little different. But a lot of times I've heard it from fans that several string of years where it was like Georgia, Wisconsin, Georgia, Michigan State, and they're going to the Outback Bowl or the Capital One Bowl. It's like, how many blasted times do we want to go to this thing? We can't go anywhere else unless you finish differently because of bowl tie-ins. So I'm all about getting rid of bowl tie-ins and have, as Christian said, make it for TV, the bowl draft show. Here are the playoff members. They're in. The rest of you guys are getting slotted. Here's bowl number 1. Here's bowl number, what would that be, 34 under the scenario?
This is a lot of math on the fly, man.
Potentially. And you get the open. We're going to start at the top, and you pick the matchup.
I like it.
And maybe the only rule would be like, look, if possible, we don't want a rematch and don't pit a conference against itself, i.e. don't make Alabama and Auburn play again.
Which because they don't do in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. Right. You can make that work.
Yeah, just so, for whatever's sake, don't make Georgia play South Carolina just because you'll have a good fan base. Pick a matchup, and I think teams will pick the best possible matchup you could get. And why wouldn't you? You wouldn't pick a 10-3, let's say you wouldn't pick a 10-win, I don't know, say Oklahoma team and say, let's let them play a 6-win Auburn because it would be a cool matchup.
I like it, but can I express
you would not do that?
This concern, because I do like it, and I do think it would help, going back to the discussion of how meaningful, how appealing is the bowl season. I think it would add a new element. My only fear would be with the bowl game order, would you have teams that don't have large fan bases or maybe don't have compelling storylines be overlooked and picked near the bottom year after year? Because look, I'm with you.
Maybe, but I think you would want a compelling matchup in terms of I can get a 9-win team.
But let me ask you this:
come in. Like I said, I don't think you would put a 10-win team against a 6-win team just because of the side of the helmet.
Right,
that would be ridiculous.
Well, but a bowl game is trying to make money.
You would probably end up with a blowout though in that situation.
Yeah, but I don't think that would be the concern. I think you use the example.
Okay,
of the
if we're only
Bowl.
trying to make money, let them pick whoever they want.
Right, but this is what I'm saying. Is that good for college football? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about amateur athletics, and what I wouldn't want is
what if some of those teams start winning a lot?
Well, let's just say
4 and 5 bowl games in a row.
I hear you, but I'm just asking you: do you think a 9-3 Notre Dame or a 10-2, to use the Louisiana argument, would likely be picked higher more years than not? It would be Notre Dame.
Sure.
And I think you would. Look, I don't like the bowl tie-ins either because.
But if you're talking about a game that kind of doesn't matter anyway, then let them pick it out.
But I think the idea of the bowl tie-ins, in theory, is to, I don't want to say mandate, but to make sure that, and we haven't always seen it go this way, but that if a team like Vanderbilt, who probably isn't going to sell out a 80,000 seat stadium, goes 9-3, there isn't a cap on the bowl game they can go to because they're Vanderbilt compared to Georgia. And I'm not saying that's been a perfect process. It has not been. And you see teams like Louisiana, winner of the Sun Belt, you're not in a post-Christmas bowl game. And I enjoy the New Orleans Bowl. I watch it every year.
And again, I think the Sun Belt champion has to go there.
Yes.
So it's like
I'm with you. I think you got to change it up.
So the best thing you can do as the Sun Belt Conference champion is the first weekend of bowl season. That's where you're
unless you get a New Year's Six bid, which is unlikely, probably given the
At
way
least at the moment.
it's currently constituted. But my only fear would be I wouldn't want the G5 schools who have lesser enrollment, don't have the fan bases that are going to buy up an 80,000 seat stadium, full of tickets. I wouldn't want them to see.
I do think the
kept at
public
bottom
criticism
every year.
of that would be enough to keep people from doing that. If you sat there,
Maybe.
it's like, hey, the number 14 team in the country is, let's just say, Appalachian State. Appalachian State is number 14, and no bowl game took them until it got down to like the 17th bowl game. You don't think people are going like, wait a minute, what are you doing?
And I'm not even saying
I'm
not even saying it's App State. Like use this year, for example.
Yeah.
Well, somebody out of the P5, Wake Forest had a great year. If you're picking bowl games and bowl games want to sell
I don't
tickets,
know if I'm the Cure Bowl or somebody in Carolina, wouldn't I have a regional tie-in to take them?
sure, but if you're picking
Not the Cure Bowl, the Mayo Bowl,
right,
or whatever.
but if you're picking off of selling tickets and that's your main or compelling storylines, a Wake Forest isn't going to have the appeal of Georgia or Notre Dame or Texas or Oklahoma. So that'd be my only fear. But to kind of rehash this for people, you and I are in agreement. You got to expand the playoff. Kind of why I was a little hesitant when talking about the future or the energy or the appeal around bowl games is we were talking about this. I think for us growing up, there was a magic to bowl season, right? Like
Sure.
January 1st, man, you have the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and bowl season had this main event type feel. And Kevin, I'm talking about outside of the national title game. You knew the national title game was what it was, and that was where everybody was focused, but there was a magic to the rest of bowl season. I wonder if an unintended consequence of expanding the playoff to 12 teams would be basically what magic there is left. And I think you're arguing there's not any, would it be completely gone? Because at least now you can say we have top 10 Ole Miss and Baylor. We have Ohio State.
And I think some of that you could get through team drafting, and maybe you have again, the bowl games are independent entities putting on a bowl game. So on some level, it's what are we talking about? An exhibition, right? We're just putting on a game. I think you would want the best. Plus, if you're,
is it that for the student athletes?
I understand, but if you're picking, let's say I get first pick, do I just want to take Notre Dame every single year, knowing that like at some point the fan base would be like, we don't want to go there anymore? Like, or would you want to have a variety of teams come through your bowl game, come through your city, come through your town to play in that game? Again, because there's nothing more frustrating to me than when I watch bowl games, then you see stuff like, oh, well, Army got bowl eligible, so of course they're going to go ahead and play in the military bowl. It's like, that's ridiculous. Like, why do you just keep going to the same bowl games every single year? And if you're the ACC, unless you're in the playoff, if you win the league, you're going to Miami. Why? Does nobody in the ACC
what I'm asking is
the Sugar Bowl?
Would it happen by proxy anyway? Because to your point, I agree. If you are bowl game X,
again,
hold on. If you're bowl game X, you're not going to pick Notre Dame in 2023, 2024, 2025. That's not the problematic scenario I'm worried about. It's would you pick a Notre Dame type school over a Appalachian State or a Wake Forest, where it's not that you're picking Notre Dame. It's in 2023, you're picking Notre Dame. In 2024, it's Texas. In 2025, it's Oklahoma. In 2026, it's Florida. And you still basically end up with the same end result of schools with smaller fan bases or schools from smaller conferences going to the quote unquote bottom tier.
If we go to 12, and under my model, I say you get to pick bowl games. If you're the first bowl game with a pick, would you not want 13 versus 14, or at the very worst, 13 versus 15?
I would hope you'd be right, but I think it would be more because
wouldn't you sell that better?
Yeah, but Ben always says this, and it's a good point because we're joking about Florida not making a bowl game or whatever, and he would say at the end of the day, after you get through the season, no one remembers if you were 10-2 or 6-6. Did you make a bowl game?
Your fan base knows if you were that bad.
Well, no. I mean, when you talk about things like the NCAA tournament, if you make the NCAA tournament, do people differentiate if you're a 3 seed or an 11 seed, or did you make the dance? Or did you make the dance?
But I think now the equivalent to that would be, did you make the playoffs?
Right.
In college football.
But what I'm saying
did you
is,
just make it to a bowl game?
In terms of selling the bowl game, do you want to sell number 13 versus number 14? I don't think that's what they sell. Like case in point, Louisiana is playing tomorrow. Louisiana's been one of the best teams in the country. Coastal Carolina has 2 losses by 5 points. Like, I don't think you're selling 13 versus 14 in the playoffs. I think you're selling it's Georgia, it's Florida. Like, Florida UCF is sold out. The Gasparilla Bowl. Florida's 6-6, and UCF just had their worst season in 5 years. But why is it a sellout? Because it's a local game and it's Florida. So I don't necessarily think bowl games would feel beholden to say, I want to have 13 versus 14, because that's not what they're selling. Let me ask you, who's number 14 right now?
I get it.
No one knows. But what you know is Oregon. What you know is Oklahoma. So my fear would be, I like the idea. I like it. And maybe I'm being too cynical. But my fear is the same end result would end up happening.
I just think for some of the bowl staleness, you need to get rid of the bowl tie-ins to change some of the matchups up, so it's not always seemingly the same 3 or 4 teams against the same 3 or 4
and
teams.
I like to say,
in the bowl.
Here's something I do hate about bowl season is, why is it that G5 teams always play G5 teams? Like, for example,
because of the bowl tie-ins.
Both Northern Illinois and Coastal Carolina, and I love the Cure Bowl. It's a great bowl game, obviously, for a great cause, and I've been there and I've had a great time. But if you're Coastal Carolina tonight in the Cure Bowl, how much cooler would it be if Coastal Carolina was playing South Carolina? And
sure.
Right? And if you're Northern Illinois, would it, and I think Northern Illinois is 9-4.
What
if you're Northern Illinois?
With the draft, maybe you turn it into a situation where teams are testing themselves.
If you're Northern Illinois, right? If you're Northern Illinois, why not play Notre Dame?
Got to earn it on merit, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, that's one angle where I 100% agree with you, is we always wonder, what's the divide like between the P5 and the G5? Well, then you end up only letting the G5 play the G5. And look, Western Kentucky's had a great year. App State's playing Western Kentucky. Why isn't App State playing North Carolina? Why isn't App State playing South Carolina? And I think that would be a way for us to learn more about the evolution of college football. And I agree with you. I think the bowl tie-ins is currently constituted where every single year, the third place team in the Big Ten and the third place team in the SEC, because you not rotate that and say, hey, the champion of the Sun Belt's going to the Capital One Bowl this year. The champion of the MAC is going to, and you might say, well, they'll never compete. Well, do we know that? I mean, the few times we've seen the New Year's Six, you've seen Houston win in the New Year's Six. You've seen UCF win in the New Year's Six. You've seen
Cincinnati, Georgia was a great game.
Right. So I think we need more of that. And if your system, which I hope the people that make decisions are listening, if that is a viable option, I'd like for that to be a mainstay. I don't want it to be, it's P5 versus P5. You get through all those, and then it's the G5 versus the G5, because these are great bowl games. These are great teams. I'm with you. Let's mix up the matchups. I would just be worried about the same thing happening via a different way.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I know there's fan bases at the G5 level that would travel to a bowl game. And again, I know people say, well, you don't think App State, if they were playing North Carolina in a bowl game, wouldn't be like fired up to say, we're about to go whip your behind in a bowl game? It may not mean anything other than we just kicked your behind. That's, that's
here's my
for
question.
those schools, that's what it means a lot. Yeah.
And looking forward to Louisiana Marshall. Looking forward to that game. Marshall's going to be in the Sun Belt. What if Louisiana was playing LSU? You want to talk about a compelling game, and LSU, if you're mad about that, well, you went 6-6. Okay. LSU didn't go 10-2. So LSU, Louisiana, that'd be awesome. So I think we got to figure out a way. I think we have a working outline.
You're coming over to my side. That's what I'm talking about. We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. Speaking of bowl games, BJ will share with the best 10 to watch featuring ACC and SEC schools coming up as bowl season is underway. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Bowl season is upon us. We already had one played today. That was the Bahamas Bowl. Looked like it was just a nice place to be on a Friday in December. Got more coming up tonight. You got the Cure Bowl and a huge Saturday of bowl games coming up as well. But BJ Bennett, your top 10 bowl games for people to watch. These are your top 10 featuring an ACC or an SEC team. So a Southern kind of influence, if you will, your top 10 bowl games. Must see appointment viewing.
And had a story up on southernpigskin.com a couple of days ago on this. I did make one adjustment with the announcement that Pitt quarterback Kenny Pickett and Michigan State running back Kenneth Walker.
Interest?
Well, I just moved it down the list a little bit, but we'll get into it. Yeah, number 10 for me, the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl, Louisville and Air Force. And Air Force not only leads the nation in rushing, they lead the nation in rushing by a wide margin. And this is one of the best rushing offenses we've seen in modern college football. Going to be exciting to see what they can do. And Malik Cunningham, one of the best players in college football. And a couple of weeks ago had 300 yards passing, 200 yards rushing in a single game. So I think there's a chance you have a lot of highlights in this one, a lot of big plays. So I'm going to go with Louisville and Air Force. Number 9 for me, I know this is one of your favorites, the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Yes.
North Carolina and South Carolina. And I don't know that that's a rivalry per se, but the fact that they're right there, the game's in Charlotte, it's perfect. And are you, okay, because to me, this would just be too much to watch. Are you in favor of the winning coach getting mayonnaise dumped on them, as has been talked about?
I like Duke's mayonnaise. I don't know that I would like, like 10 gallons of it dumped on me.
But I mean, do you want that to happen? Like,
no,
okay, well, a lot of people are.
Because I know there are people like yourself and others who are grossed out physically by mayonnaise. So I don't think, I don't think that would be necessarily a good thing. Like if you go and, if Mac Brown's like,
it's just the mayonnaise.
He's like adverse to mayonnaise, then you probably don't want to dump it on somebody's head. But I love Duke's mayonnaise. If you are from the South, that is the only mayonnaise you should be. That's an unpaid plug, by the way.
I was going to say
for Duke's mayonnaise.
There you go. So that one at number 9 for me. At number 8, I moved it down, Kevin, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Pittsburgh and Michigan State. And yeah, I mean, I think you're being honest. The game doesn't have the same star power as maybe the nation's best running back and a Heisman Trophy finalist. I still think two very good teams. I think two very good coaches. I think it's a compelling matchup, but I think I had it in the top 5 when you had Kenny Pickett, who a lot of people are saying could be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and then Kenneth Walker. Number 7, the Outback Bowl. I know PJ's excited for that one, Arkansas and Penn State. Something about that, Kevin, to me screams like 17-13.
Well, this is where it's interesting because you had one of the best year 2s in the country. There was Sam Pittman at Arkansas, right? Really, last year was a COVID year. They won a couple of games, and everybody said, okay, COVID, is what it is. And he comes back and really puts together a great season. That's interesting. But on the other side, you also have a team that maybe underachieved more than people thought they were going to in 2021, and that's Penn State. I thought they were going to contend maybe to play in the Big Ten championship game, and they did not even sniff a chance at doing that.
I think this is a big game, not only because it's, a fairly high-profile bowl game, but also setting up a team for next season. Arkansas returns a lot of talent. Penn State does too. So this could be kind of, the last game of 2021, but maybe the first game of 2022 in some respects. For me, number 6, the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl, Florida and USC. And folks may be saying, Florida's 6-6, and that's why this is so compelling. Florida is 500, and they really want to win this game. Not necessarily so they can be the winner of the Gasparilla Bowl, but you don't want to lose to UCF.
Sure.
Because a couple of years ago, right, Kevin, you had the argument, why won't Florida and UCF schedule it? And you got to do the home and home, and we're not coming there. Well, guess what? They're playing now.
Yeah.
And this is right there in Tampa, in the state of Florida. UCF wants this bad.
They do. I didn't want to hit you on a technicality. The Chick-fil-A Bowl, not the last game of the 22 or the Outback Bowl. Georgia, Michigan going to be the last game of 2021.
All right. I was talking kind of the end of the 2021 season into the 2022.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
I respect that.
I thought you were talking about the last. Like Georgia, Michigan is the last physical
I'm
game
saying like it's
of 2021.
Like it's the last game, but it also is kind of a game for the future.
I got you.
I appreciate that.
All right, anyway, moving along.
Are you excited for the Gasparilla Bowl?
Yeah, I think this will be one of the non-New Year's 6 to watch, non-playoff games. I think that is one where Florida new coach. I think you have guys trying to impress because certainly Billy Napier is going to be in attendance watching. If you go lay an egg and run a few routes like some Toledo guys did today, that may not be the best way to get in the good graces. And a highly motivated team on the other side who wants that national respect, who wants the in-state respect. And there's a little guy named Gus Malzahn coaching on the other side there as well. Don't think they don't want to make a statement here by beating Florida.
A lot of storylines. Yeah. Okay. For me, moving to the top 5 bowl games with ACC or SEC teams, the Cheez-It Bowl. And if you would have said at the beginning of the year, Clemson and Iowa State are going to play in the postseason, a lot of people would have said playoff game. Clemson was in the top 3 and Iowa State was in the top 10. And Iowa State, I think for the second year in a row, quite honestly, has kind of fallen off after high preseason expectations. No, excuse me. They made the Fiesta Bowl, actually. I'm thinking about the loss to Louisiana early. Iowa State, though, was expected to be with Breece Hall, Brock Purdy, Will McDonald to be a playoff team. Not quite. Quietly, Clemson has turned it around. They've played pretty good down the
10
stretch.
wins here if they win the bowl game.
And shut out South Carolina in the regular season finale. So quietly, I know the Cheez-It Bowl, they've been to 6 straight playoffs, but Clemson.
This is interesting, as you said, because Matt Campbell's bunch, Iowa State underachieved, and Clemson is who's left. You have a lot of people with their eyeballs out the door already there for Clemson.
2 new
your
coordinators.
AD, your 2 coordinators. How does Dabo rally everybody together to try to win the Cheez-It Bowl and get to 10 wins again?
But if Clemson wins this game, for all the talk of the ACC's open now, I mean, I think you're talking about a preseason top 7 to 8 team.
Depends on who the coordinators are, I think. I mean, everybody expects he's going to get a good one, but I mean, you're talking about Brent Venables was an all-timer there at Clemson where it was just lock it up on defense, and that really helped them be really, really good. And of course, offensively, they were really good. I don't know if it's as simple as like Clemson's going to be 2 new coordinators is nothing to just shake off and say they'll be fine. I mean, not everybody's Nick Saban in Alabama where you just revolve the door and it's fine. I'm watching that more than I think most people.
Okay. Number 4, Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Texas A&M and Wake Forest, a lot of storylines. Texas A&M's defensive coordinator is now the head coach at Duke, Mike Elko, and Wake Forest comes in with a top 5 offense in the country. Yes, Sam Hartman, Ja'Cory Roberson, you're talking about A.T. Perry. Wake Forest has one of the best offenses in the country. Really excited to see what they can do against a big time SEC defense. I'm excited for that.
And again, I don't know what the rules on this are. Is Zach Calzada playing the bowl game?
I do not believe so.
If you're in the transfer portal, right,
yes.
you can't play. So,
and you have a number of situations like that around the country.
So I'm saying, so Texas A&M could be in a very interesting spot there from a personnel standpoint going in that game. And Wake Forest, also a team with something to prove because they're trying to overcome we're Wake Forest. And again, what a tremendous job they have done getting to 10 wins there in Winston-Salem.
Trying to bounce back after the ACC title game loss to Pitt. All right, the big 3, number 3, the Sugar Bowl, the All-State Sugar Bowl, Ole Miss and Baylor. And Baylor, the last time they were outplayed, I mean, what a game that was. Baylor and Oklahoma State, and Baylor wins the Big 12. So somebody not named Oklahoma's won the Big 12. And I think Baylor's going to come in with a lot of momentum, that great defensive stand in that game, taking on an Ole Miss team that everybody talks about Matt Corral. And we understand that. Matt Corral, great quarterback, is going to be a first-round pick. Ole Miss is in the top 5 nationally in rushing. And that's what I want to see is both these teams like to run the football. Lane Kiffin, if they win.
This could be like 49-48.
I believe if they win, they will have 11 wins, a new school record. So Ole Miss is on the verge of some history, not in the playoff, maybe a couple of plays away from possibly being there, but still a chance to make some history for Ole Miss. And then the 2 playoff semifinals, 1 and 2. I have Alabama and Cincinnati coming in at number 2. I do think it
Who was it that we had on yesterday that said they think Alabama's going to win by like 30?
Oh, it's SEC Mike.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but
I don't think that either, Kevin. But I do think this is fascinating from a historical standpoint. You have the first non-P5 team, G5, whatever, to make it into the playoff. And the question has long been asked about the UCFs, about the Memphises, the Cincinnatis. Well, what if they played Bama? Well, now we're going to see it. And I kind of feel like the pressure's all on Alabama because if you lose, but even if you win by 7, people are going to say, well, dude, and that's not fair.
But who is, I understand that, but who has Alabama done that to outside of Georgia? They got a lot of close games.
A lot of close games.
Go ahead, continue. I
was just letting it resonate. A lot of close games. And then number 1, the Capital One Orange Bowl for me, Georgia and Michigan. And maybe it's because, we're here, but I think this is a really cool matchup. 2 traditional powers, Michigan, one of the 2 or 3 best programs of all time, winningest programs of all time. They've only played once. That was something in the history, and you're talking about well over 100 years, Georgia and Michigan have only played once. And I think those logos on the helmet, I think the fact that Michigan is arguably the top rushing team in the Power Five going up against Georgia's impenetrable run defense, I think that matchup of strength versus strength is going to be awesome. I feel like Georgia deserves to be the favorite here, but I think if this is a low-scoring game, maybe one or two big plays can be the difference here. I mean, I don't know that you're going to see either team get to 24-28 in this one between the Dogs and Wolverines.
Yeah, it could be a great game, and what a way to close out 2021 heading into 2022 than those two teams going at it. And again, Georgia's got something to prove because they want to get back to the championship and get another crack at what they think will be Alabama. And Michigan you haven't done anything remotely close to this under Jim Harbaugh.
Great season.
And now a chance to tack on and get to the national championship game would be certainly a milestone step. We got more to come here on 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We are streaming live at ESPNCoastal.com on your mobile device with the ESPN app. Good to have you here on this Friday. Bowl season is upon us. We've already had one bowl game. Today, we will have another bowl game coming up in 22 minutes with the Cure Bowl, and you'll hear that right here this evening. A full day of bowl games tomorrow. Our coverage starting tomorrow at 10 a.m., so a lot of bowl coverage still to come. But, BJ, something I know has a lot of folks kind of back and forth on bowl season, and that's players sitting it out. You mentioned it a little bit last segment. Kenny Pickett, Kenneth Walker not going to play. Pitt and Michigan State, I believe, are going to play each other, right? I mean, and that's
it's in Atlanta. Yeah, Peach
an
Bowl.
Interesting matchup. And now becomes less interesting when you remove, in my opinion, the two best players. You talk about bowl interest. I think that's some of it as well, where you get to some of these lesser bowl games and the best players, usually who are probably draft eligible, say, yeah, I'm not going to play. And again, I'm not saying you fault them for that, but that certainly as a fan, if you B-team it, like Dan Mullen famously said, that makes it tough as a fan to really get invested in my team cares about winning when I've got two or three guys that are not playing, and that drastically changes the type of football team you are.
Well, I don't think that's fair to say my team may or may not care. I mean, you're talking about a roster of 85 guys, and I haven't made the count up yet for this bowl season, but I think maybe a couple of guys max on most teams. But I absolutely support guys doing this, and the reason is because you have to think about it outside of the context of kind of the hype of the game or them being on the field and making it a more compelling matchup. For players like Kenny Pickett and Kenneth Walker, you are going to be a high draft pick. Now, we don't know if you're going to be, in the first round and the second round, but you are talking about not only potentially generational money, but you're talking about the chance to be one of a couple of thousand maybe a couple of thousand people in the world that play in the National Football League. And I know folks may say, oh, well, even if you get injured, you're not going to totally lose your chance. Well, that may be true. But let's just say, because keep in mind, we use the postseason pre-draft events as a major springboard in evaluation and in terms of momentum. And a lot of this is kind of a trend game. You have the Combine coming up. You have the Senior Bowl coming up. You have Pro Days coming up. If Kenny Pickett, for example, who some people have rumored might be the number one overall pick, comes out and tears an ACL, I mean, you hate to even say it, but tears an ACL. I mean, you hate if anybody gets hurt. But if Kenny Pickett tears an ACL, you're talking about what? Even in today's medical context, an 8 to 9 month recovery potentially, you are losing millions of dollars. You are. Even if you go from being the number one overall pick to the number 15 pick. Much less if you go to a second or third round, or if you're a third round guy and you get injured and you go from the third round to the fifth or sixth round or not being drafted, that's a massive amount of money. And I think any of us, me, I mean, if you're on the verge of potentially generational wealth, and I'm not saying everybody makes millions of dollars in the NFL, but you're on the verge of a lot of money, and this is a career path that you're envisioning and have probably worked towards for a number of years, you're going to do what you can to protect the sanctity of that. I mean, if you're on the verge, if you're going to be a first round pick, and let's just throw kind of an even number out there, and you're on the verge of $5 million, it's not turning your back on your teammates. It's not, disrespecting the bowl game to say, I'm making a business decision just like coaches do. Coaches make business decisions all the time. And I understand you want to be there for your guys. And I'm sure there's conflict for everybody who makes this decision, but you're on the verge of changing, some elements maybe of your life. I mean, I think $5 million would be a massive change for a lot of people, and your family's lives, your friends' lives, potentially your kids down the line, their lives. And you're talking about one game. You've already given 3 years, 4 years, 35, 40, 45 games, depending upon the games you've played in. And I think it's a business decision. You're protecting your future.
Yeah, I understand. I don't think anybody's at this point arguing about that. I think from a fan, obviously, everybody's selfish in what they want, right? I mean, it's you want to see the best players play. And I don't think anybody's faulting them for doing that. I think that's also part of the reason, quite frankly, BJ, we talked about this for a majority of the show. I don't want to go back to it, but why you're seeing a proliferation of talk about expanding the playoffs is because I think as a college football product, you want your best players to play, right? And so how do you get your best players to play? You give them a meaningful game to play in, right? You don't have to worry about guys who are going to the NBA sitting out the NCAA tournament. And why? Because that's where they make dollars, right?
But would they send out the NIT?
Right. And who's here is trying to argue that the NIT is relevant?
No, sure,
That's what I'm
but
saying. So that's not my point. My point is you want to expand the playoffs so more of your best players don't opt out and continue to play in the college football postseason. I think that's part of it.
I don't know that
well.
would be my reason for expanding the playoff.
I think that's a little part of it as well, is that you get more of a compelling postseason product to offer up there. I mean, when you actively have stars that don't want to play, and it's a business decision, that affects your product, right? I mean, that it certainly does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you're going to go
I'm
from
not blaming anybody.
Yeah,
I'm saying that's the reality of the situation.
I don't know that you're going to go from selling like 78,000 tickets to 33,000 tickets.
But hear me out. No, if I'm a Pitt fan, and again, I'm just saying, if I'm a Pitt fan, and I'm thinking about going to the Chick-fil-A bowl game because I want to watch the team play, and then I hear Kenny Pickett's not going to play. He's opting out. And the best player on the other team is also opting out. Am I still coughing up a bowl trip to go watch my not best player play? I know you can say, well, aren't you a fan of the team? Well, I am, but am I going to go to that bowl trip if the best guy on the team's not going to play? And he's not going to, and that significantly.
Well, I mean, he could get hurt. I
understand that, but I mean, that significantly affects our chances of winning the ball game. And I'm talking about just purely fan standpoint. Do you want to go and still watch?
I think most people would still go. Like if you were going to go to the Peach Bowl, like if that was your discussion with your family, say, hey, we're going to go to the Peach Bowl, we're going to watch Pitt.
Okay,
Pitt just had a great season.
Let's localize it. Say Georgia's not in the playoffs; they're in a New Year's Six bowl game, or even just a good bowl game, and you're like, don't want to go watch Georgia play in Tampa. All right, and Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis have both said they're not going to play, and one of the running backs have said they're not going to play. Are you more interested in going? Or are you less interested in going when you have some of those guys opt out? I'm just saying.
Because keep in mind, I mean, this happens every year.
It doesn't. I'm talking about it from a fan base in general.
Yeah.
When your best player says, I don't want to play, and it's a game that doesn't count already.
But let me ask you this.
Are you more interested in going or are you less interested?
If it's a game that doesn't matter already, if you want to use that phraseology, would you rather see a guy get reps for next season?
Potentially.
If it's a game that doesn't matter,
I can do that at the house.
But that's what I'm asking you. If it's a game that doesn't matter, because you've already won your ACC title if you're Pitt.
Sure.
So the game doesn't matter. Would you rather see the sophomore quarterback get live game experience and build for
as
next
a fan?
year?
Sure, I can appreciate that. I'm not shelling out money necessarily to go do that.
I think if you're going to the Peach Bowl, you're going to the Peach Bowl. Like,
okay, I mean, again, it's probably just a philosophical, conversation.
Is there the same hype around the game? No, that's why I moved it down in my rankings. But I think that's secondary to guys making the decisions that are best for them. I mean,
I've not once in my whole argument said I fault them for doing it. I just said, as a fan, are you more or less interested when your best player doesn't play?
As a fan of the team,
and not because he's hurt, just because he's not playing.
As a fan of the team, I think you're equally interested. As a fan of college football who's looking for games to watch, you might be less interested. Like,
okay,
if you're a Georgia fan and Stetson Bennett or Zamir White or Jordan Davis doesn't play, you're still emotionally vested in what Georgia does. Now, if you're a Big Ten fan and you're thinking, I want to watch Georgia because of these 3 or 4 guys, and a couple of them don't play, I could see that being more of a reason to not watch. But I think if you're a fan, you're a fan, man.
I guess I'm not a real fan.
Oh, well,
is that what you're saying?
I mean, come on. Not State's playing for the national title.
They are.
If 1 or 2 guys out, are you still caring?
Are they out because they're hurt, or are they opting out and choosing not to play? And again, I'm not faulting them, but it's like, as a fan, you can process they're injured and not playing. They're not injured. You can't
process them doing what's best for their personal lives and their families?
I can, but the only reason they're not playing is just because they don't want to. So
I think it'd be harder to process the injury. Like, what bad luck. Mike, he just got hurt, sprained his ankle walking down the stairs at the Radisson. But, I mean, that's harder to process. I can support and understand you stepping away to do what's best for you and your family. I can support that. What I can't support is, oh, man, yeah, they were throwing the Frisbee before the Bahamas Bowl, and he turned his – that's like, oh, my God. That's frustrating.
I get it.
The fluke injuries.
I think it's only going to happen with guys who feel like they're first-round talent. I really
maybe. I mean, there's a huge difference.
Okay. I was just saying, how far down? If let's say BJ Bennett is a guy with athletic ability.
Oh boy,
I know we're all making a huge leap. All right, but let's say you are a football player with athletic ability. How far down the list in your draft kind of prognosis would it have to go for you to say it probably doesn't matter if I play or not?
For me, and it's hard to say this, is 37 years old,
right.
But if I'm 20, 21 years old and I have the chance
if you get a 4th round grade, which is not You can get a 4th round grade and not even get drafted.
But I guess here's the question. If I have a 4th round grade, would me not playing hurt my opportunity to move up? Because I think that's the argument for guys that are 1st and 2nd round picks. If you're going to be the 27th overall pick, I don't know that you're all of a sudden going to move up to the 9th
if you were
overall
in that,
pick.
if you were in that position, what would the draft grade have to be for you to say I will still play and not sit out?
I don't know. But
well you got to answer the question.
well,
I'm trying to.
No, I don't, because I don't know the answer. I mean, but and I don't want to speak for Ben when Ben's not here. But I know Ben said when he went to the combine, he didn't do a lot of the events, and the reason was because
But I think that's different than playing a game.
it's the same principle. The reason was because the results were not going to dramatically boost his stock, but the results could dramatically hurt his stock. And I think that's where you get into the risk reward. If you're a 4th round guy, and maybe, you go back a couple of years, Dante Fowler had 4 sacks in the Birmingham Bowl. He went from being a guy that, is going to play in the pros to being a top 3 pick.
Yeah.
And
worked out nicely for him.
Yeah.
I don't know about anybody else.
But that's what I would look at. If I'm a 4th round, 5th round guy, and you're telling me you're going to be on national TV.
It's a national stage. I get that part.
Then maybe I would weigh and risk that. But if you're telling me you're going to be a guaranteed 1st or 2nd round pick, and you're about to get $1 million plus,
so guaranteed 2nd round, not doing it.
Not doing it.
Okay, now we're making a little progress. What about guaranteed 3rd round pick?
I think that's a little tougher. My gut, if I'm being honest, if I'm on the verge of, because I believe the top 4 round picks get a what, a 3 or 4 year guaranteed contract. My gut would probably be no.
Okay, I'm just trying to find the line, the limit to where you.
But we can do that with anything. Kevin, how much is too much for dinner? 28. What about $29?
Well, at some point,
what about $30?
At some point, there will be a line where I will say that's too much. I'm not doing it. We got more to come.
It's $1 more, man.
That's how they get you. We got more to come. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter. Also streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. It's 3 and Out on this Friday. Bowl season here. We've got the Cure Bowl moments away. Coming up top of the hour, BJ Coastal Carolina looking for its first ever bowl win against Northern Illinois. And then tomorrow we have got the full gamut for you. A full day of football starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow with the App State, Western Kentucky, Boca Raton Bowl, followed by UTEP and Fresno State. We'll have Liberty and Eastern Michigan. No, we won't. We will have Oregon State and Utah State, followed by Louisiana and Marshall. There's so many bowl games I had to correct on which ones we will actually have. We will have the Boca Raton Bowl, the New Mexico Bowl, the LA Bowl, the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, and New Orleans Bowl tomorrow. So a quadruple header of college football action for you. Looking forward to it.
I'm excited. I'm ready. And Coastal Carolina, again, I kind of feel like people around the country have stopped talking about it. Still had a great year. Went 10-2, lost their 2 games by a combined total of 5 points. So a really good team. Grayson McCall, Isaiah Likely, CJ Brewer. I mean, just a great squad.
So the last 2 years are what, 22-3?
Yes. I mean, they have been one of the premier programs, right, in college football. And right there in the Sun Belt, App State, Louisiana tomorrow, Sun Belt teams. So a spotlight on that league, and it's fun. I think it's a cool opportunity for the student athletes. Looking forward to all the bowl games tomorrow, the Celebration Bowl. You have the FCS playoffs tonight and tomorrow afternoon. James Madison, who will play tonight against North Dakota State, they will be in the Sun Belt in the future with App State, with Coastal, with Louisiana, with Georgia Southern, Georgia State. So looking forward to all the games, and don't have much football left. Like college, obviously.
Yeah, but this today begins a run because you'll have 3 games tomorrow. Of course, NFL on Sunday, or a bunch of games tomorrow, I should say. NFL on Sunday, then there's a bowl game Monday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think none on Christmas. NFL on Sunday, and then right back into a week-long run up to the January 1st bowl game. So
I'm ready.
We're in a full
I'm saying you're talking trash about all the bowl games.
I know what I'm saying.
And you're going to watch them.
It's something to watch. I will not be.
It's not something to watch. It's college football. How dare you? What are you talking about? It's not some. Rob Manfred. Yeah, it's just a hunk of metal. It's something to look at. It's a trophy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little different than saying it's a hunk of metal. But come on. What do they get for winning the Cure Bowl?
No, I'm saying, didn't Rob Manfred say that about the World Series?
He did.
Yeah.
What do they get for winning the Cure Bowl? What kind of trophy do they get?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay,
college football, man.
What's coming up next?
And you'll be begging for it in April and May.
Probably so. But for now, we got the Cure Bowl. Bowl season has started, and it comes your way next. Coastal Carolina looking for their first ever bowl win. Just a couple of minutes away. We'll have the kickoff. Thanks for listening. We'll see you Monday here on 3 and Out.